Hi, I'm Hazel. This is Reflect. Here we talk about art and philosophy and life and things. And today we're going to be talking about this is my laptop, these are my notes. Today we're going to be talking about not finishing things and pausing and changing course and why all of this is okay when it comes to like relationships or life or career or like your passion projects or just habits and hobbies and all of it. If you can hear that lovely music outside, I cannot do one single thing to change anything about that. So when it comes to things, right, habits and hobbies and careers and everything, we are very uncomfortable with sort of not grasping things entirely, not understanding or not accomplishing. Whether this is like, okay, you missed the gym like 4 times and you went 3 times instead, and you didn't hit that weekly little target you had set for yourself. Or like you're reading and you didn't like fully understand something the author said. Or it could be like career stuff or like just like bigger things. But I think that we are very uncomfortable when it comes to just not completing and when we change course, right? And I think that the reason why this is okay is because I came up with this metaphor myself. It's because life is to be lived as like a journey instead of this collection of races where you go from like race to race. Instead of like looking at life as a sort of collection of races, you have to get past the finish line, and like each time you get past the finish line, that will have taught you something that will automatically add to the next race, and then you will be faster in the next race. Like that's not how it works, right? Instead, it's more like you will fall down and stumble and get back up, and like you will pause and learn and change course. And you would have thought that something that made so much sense and something that was a path that was so defined and crystal clear in your mind, you would think that that would work out, but it doesn't. Such as life. And the quicker you sort of make your peace with that, the smoother life becomes and the less that jolts you each time. So for example, I was reading this Margin Alien blog. So Margin Alien it's a series of blog posts run by this one person, Maria Popova, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She posts a lot of these passages from essays or like these poems or like these diary entries of a bunch of artists and poets and scientists, and then she sort of draws connections between them, and like one thing links to another, and then she intersperses these quotes with like her own thoughts, her own musings, and it's very beautiful. So I'll link to that. You should totally check that out. So I was reading one of these blog posts, right, and I came across this quote by Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau, I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he said something and I didn't fully grasp it, and then I was not completely comfortable with that, which leads me into the next thing I want to talk about, which is that people often talk about this thing of being present, right? Which is also what I'm trying to say in this video, that more than like getting past the finish line each time, it's about being present so that you can enjoy the things that you are doing and also like deepen your awareness and sort of grasp the lessons that these different things that you're doing are supposed to teach you. But being present doesn't also mean being productive all the time. Like it's more about just being, you know. But people say that very easily. People say that like, okay, just be present, just live what you are doing. But it's not often that easy, because let's say you're working on something, you're writing or you're reading or something, and you love this thing, you love reading, you love writing, all of it. But it's not optimized to the best possible level that it could be, or your mind is wandering, and the function of the mind is to wander. Like I was listening to this guided meditation once, and so the person who was sort of guiding me on the meditation said that it's okay if your mind wanders, just come back to your breath. So the function of the mind is to wander, just as the function of the mouth is to salivate. And I thought that was a nice way of putting it. So it's okay that the mind wanders, but that's what happens when you're trying to be present and you're doing something that you enjoy, but your mind is like occupied with other thoughts. So how do you be present and how do you be in the moment more? That's something that I'm trying to like figure out. So if you have some ideas or some thoughts or comments, just comment them below. But my question is like, is that supposed to be the whole of life? Is the whole of life just this act of like mindfulness, basically how the meditation is supposed to be? Like you do your thing and then you stray from the path, and then it's just trying to come back to that state of peace or contentment or joy or whatever form presence takes. Is it supposed to be that? I think it is, and I think that it makes sense, but it is also hard. And so one sort of solution for that is this quote, which was taken from the blog post that I read on Martian Alien today, which is something that Henry David Thoreau said. And so he says, so he's talking about walking, all right? So this is what he says: I am alarmed when it happens that I have walked a mile into the woods bodily without getting there in spirit. In my afternoon walk, I would fain forget all my morning occupations and my obligations to society. But it sometimes happens that I cannot easily shake off the village. The thought of some work will run in my head, and I am not where my body is. I am out of my senses. In my walks, I would fain return to my senses. What business have I in the woods if I am thinking of something out of the woods? So even he, who was like this big proponent of walking and found so much peace and contentment in it, and also in his time, this is like, I think as a couple of centuries ago, there was a lot more wilderness out there. And also as a man, he can just easily walk into the woods. But the other thing is that even someone like him who found and who was such a proponent of actually sauntering, not even walking, so like just sort of being with nature and not doing the walk as a sense of like exercise or some sort of productivity, but just being and also being in motion at the same time. Yeah, I think that's why walking is so good, because you are just being, but you're also in motion at the same time. So both of those functions together is beautiful. But even he is someone who would sometimes, his thoughts would be somewhere else while he is out there in nature, which I think is completely fine. But yeah, I think I'm just having a hard time with the idea that you can do things and that no matter how strong your intent is and how strong your will is to be in the present, if you're someone like me at least, you're going to have this sort of code in your mind that's like, I just want this to be as optimized as possible and I want this to be as productive as possible. But then I don't like, what frustrates me is that there is no measure of presence. There's no measure of like, there's no way to measure and track and optimize presence, being present, other than a feeling that says maybe at the end of the walk, or at the end of the painting or reading or writing or whatever activity you enjoy doing, a feeling that says that this was fun, this was pleasant, but that feeling is not always going to be there. So I think I'm dealing with a very human thing of like just wanting joy and happiness all of the time, or a sense of like productivity all the time in my case. But that's not always gonna happen, and that's okay. I seem to just be struggling with that today and for the last couple of days for some reason. But yeah, no, getting back to this walk thing. Yeah, I think walks are beautiful, and I'm gonna like link this video that I made on like these tools of deepening your self-relationship and your self-knowledge and everything. And so I talk about a couple of ways to go on walks over there, which is great, so check that out. So for instance, one thing I talked about was just being in motion, right? But outside, like not in your sort of society or in a garden or in nature. Like do that too. Those kinds of walks are amazing for their own reasons. But another way of walking is to just sort of do it outside in traffic, right? Not in traffic, you'll die, but which is its own sort of, anyway, but like on the footpath and watching people in motion, right? So watching people in motion while you are in motion, and watching traffic and the birds, and you have all the sounds of the leaves rustling and like the birds, and watching people and their sort of movements. Someone will be talking on the phone, or someone will be doing something with their hand, some sort of nervous movement, and you get to watch all of these different sort of emotions, these different habits, nervous habits, or people smiling or people holding hands, and like it's just nice because it takes you out of your own world. And another sort of way that you can do that is to build a story between the things that you're saying, like interconnect them together and make a sort of narrative to like build a sort of story. Like that's like also a fun thing to do while walking, I think. But yeah, check out that video, and also check out, I'll link this in the description. It's also something that I read today on the Martin Alien blog post, where she linked to some other, I think, a psychologist who wrote this. I'm not sure if she's a psychologist, but she's someone who wrote a book on like going for walks with 11 different types of people. One of them was like going on a walk with a dog, one was like going on a walk with her toddler. And so going on a walk with these different people like taught her how to perceive the world and like deepened her relationship with walking, which I think is great. So I'll link to that. But yeah, I've written that sometimes you walk to solve a problem, sometimes to get out of your head, sometimes to meet your mind in a fresh environment, one with nature and one in pleasant sauntering motion, not for the sake of busyness and productivity, but do it so that you'll see a whole different side to yourself, one that is curious and wondering and imaginative like a child. So I think that's great. And then the other thing I've said is that I think there are new kinds of awareness and curiosity, and always new mental paths that open up as you stroll on physical paths, and these make life seem so simple. And these give you new solutions, but also make these problems smaller. I was out with my friend the other day, and she also said this, that life is really so simple. And I think that sentence, that life is so simple. I think that's great because we make all of these problems because we're doing all of these things and interacting with all of these people, and life becomes very complicated. But going on a walk every now and then is just a good reminder that life is very simple, and there's so many people other than you, and there's so much going on out there, and so many sights and sounds and smells and motions that you can just sort of immerse yourself in, and that the world is so much bigger and life is at the same time so simple. So yeah, my final thing I wanted to say is that from a productivity point of view, right, there is only so much that hacks and gamification and streaks and tracking can get you, because eventually life does become about like your relationship to these things, your relationship to exercise, to deepening your relationships, to your work, career, your personal projects, your habits, your hobbies. Your relationship to these things does become eventually about finding the meaning, finding your meaning, like assign your own meaning to these things in relation to yourself. Because I think gamification is a good sort of starting point, right? Habit tracking and all of those tips that people like, I don't know, James Clear and all of them give, which is great. And those have helped me at so many like points in my life. And those are great for whenever you are starting out the habit that you have a hard time being accountable with. So I think that's great. But eventually it does become about what do these things mean to me? And again, thinking about it as a journey, thinking about reading as a journey or exercise as a journey. All of these things are like lifelong. These things are not about reaching a goal or reaching the ideal body type or reaching or being the sort of person who reads 100 books a year, but it's deeper than that. It's about the meaning that you make and the joy, but not only the feelings that you get out of these things, but how they shape you and how they make you. More than that, seeing your struggles with these things, right? Which could be something so simple, like I said, like just not being able to motivate yourself to get to gym the 4th time a week. But like these kinds of struggles with your habits and hobbies and things, seeing the struggles and the falling down and the getting back up, seeing those things as like the material that life is made out of. Because if you just saw it as like goals, right, when you reach that goal, you will quickly realize that, okay, now what? I'm here. I got the perfect body, or I drank the 2 liters of water a day, which is very hard for me. Very, very hard. Or like, I read so many books, and like, now what? I'm still feeling like this is not enough, or I'm still feeling like there is more to conquer. Like, you will never run out of things to conquer. So instead of looking at it always as like in terms of tangible goals, start thinking about these things as like lifelong. These are journeys. The struggles with these areas of your life is what life is made out of, is the material that life is made out of. And if it wasn't there, it would just not be interesting. Aside from being the material that life is made out of, they also help you ride the whole spectrum of human emotions. And what I mean by that is that this is something I said in another video that I was talking about, Of Human Bondage, the book by Somerset Maugham, where it's basically this book where the protagonist is dealing with this question of like, what is the purpose of life then? And I think my answer to that, is it still the same answer? Or I think one of my answers to that is that the purpose of life, we're put on here to do different things and thereby ride the whole spectrum of human emotions. So just having these ups and downs with these areas of your life is a way to ride that whole spectrum of human emotions, which is great, because without these different emotions, you would not be able to tell one emotion from the other. You would not be able to tell sadness from happiness or pain from joy, nor would you be able to absorb the lessons that you were supposed to absorb in life, right? For your own growth, for the sake of your relationships with others, for the sake of your relationship with yourself. So yeah, that is all I have for you today. God, I opened the work tab. Let me just shut that. It's Sunday. Yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any sort of thoughts or comments or like supplements to these thoughts that I'm having, your own, perceptions about life and pausing and changing course and struggling with productivity and consistency and things like that, let me know about your own journeys in the comments, as well as like any sort of ideas that you have about, grappling with life and such. So yeah, I'll see you next Sunday. Have a great day, dawn, night, dusk, whatever you are. Okay, bye, take care.